I got everything you need, no trouble, don't need a thing. Snap your fingers and I'm on. I got everything you need, don't need a thing.
So we're back with another episode of the L&D Diaries, and I'm really excited about this one. We're joined by our customers over at LogMeIn. So joining me today on the show, we have Tanya Seidel from LogMeIn. She's the Director of Global Training, as well as Angel Wade, the Learning and Development Manager over at LogMeIn, and Derek Whitaker, Talent Development Manager at LogMeIn. To all three of you, welcome to the L&D Diaries.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you. Glad to be here.
So let's kick it off. We'll kind of level set. Tell me about your roles and what your teams do over there at LogMeIn.
Yeah, well, I'll start us off. So my name, as you said, is Tanya Seidel, and I lead our systems training team and also our partner training team that are focused on our sales audience as well as our partners or our resellers. And so we very much have a large investment in our learning platform, as we are responsible for administering the system for our sales audience, as well as supporting our global T&D audience for getting their content into the system and available for our sales audience. And then on my team, I have Angel, who is our main administrator, who we could not do without.
Yeah, so my role is on Tanya's team as the Learning Systems Program Manager. And one of my primary roles is as the administrator of Docebo for our sales and care audience. It includes mainly training and supporting both our reps and our sales trainers on the system. And we work in great partnership with our counterparts.
I'm the outlier. I work through HR. I don't report through the sales teams, and I kind of support the rest of the organization. That's with our leadership development programs, our global onboarding for all new hires, working with various departments with their department-specific training, and all the different compliance trainings that we get to do throughout the year.
Awesome. Thanks to all three of you for that brief introduction. So I want to kind of dive in a little bit deeper, Angel and Tanya. Can you tell me a little bit about the sales audience that's active in your Docebo platform, and then following by that, Derek as well on the HR side. Just tell me a little bit of the training program that you're offering.
Sure. With our sales audience, we created a customized experience. Historically, our sales employees have been consuming the most content within the system, so we put a lot of focus on what's going on with our sales org at any given time. And we support the bulk of the training in the system with our sales onboarding, with product updates, and sales skills as well.
You know, on the HR side, we have really started using Docebo quite heavily with our new hire onboarding. Throughout the last year, of course, with the pandemic happening, that became particularly relevant. And we've really been able to bolster up the support that we give to new hires as they come on board. But we also focus quite heavily on helping our managers and build them in their professional development so that they can help the employees in turn. And so we have a fully fledged leadership development program in Learn at LogMeIn, or Docebo, as we call it, I guess.
That's actually a good point, though. You have the platform white labeled as Learn at LogMeIn. Is that correct?
We do, yeah.
Amazing. So what was Learn at LogMeIn prior to bringing on Docebo? Can you kind of walk me through, what it looked like beforehand, and talk me through some of those pains that kind of led you to Docebo and that made its way onto your sort of selection criteria for your new learning platform?
Sure, I can kick us off there. So prior to Docebo, LogMeIn had been involved in a handful of mergers and acquisitions, and each of those companies were using a different system. So we eventually got to the point where we needed to find a single system that's going to meet all of our collective needs. And again, historically, sales was the driver of needing a system, but as a company, we knew that we wanted to have a streamlined system that was company-wide, that we could meet all of our different needs, not just for sales. From the experience that we had with our previous systems, we knew that we needed a system that was going to be easy to administer for sure, but that it also could be customized. And we wanted to improve our audience engagement as well as our trainer engagement within the platform.
And Derek, was it similar, the needs that you kind of saw in the situation that you'd had prior to bringing on Docebo?
Absolutely. Primarily, the rest of the company really didn't have a centralized learning management system. We used our prior vendor for the annual harassment prevention type training, but beyond that, we didn't have that consolidated resource. And it was really important to us from the HR side that everybody in the company have access to all the learning material, so that if people want to learn more about our products, if they're in finance or engineering or wherever, they can access the sales content and learn the value prop. And then we can also build and bolster the rest of the onboarding programs throughout the company and the upskilling and up training along the way.
Great. What if for each of you really, where have you seen the biggest improvements? And I'm primarily thinking kind of like your day to day, that you're just like, my life is easier now, using Docebo. What have been some of those biggest improvements for your program, as well as kind of the overall experience as well, perhaps for your learners?
One of the things we're super proud about is the experience that we've provided. I think when we first implemented Docebo, the priority was get it up, get it running, get our content moved over from our old system, and just make sure it works, right? We've all been in that situation before. But what we quickly realized is that with the sheer volume of content that we had, and with everything that Derek was starting to put into the system, and the continued amount of content that our T&D team continued to put for sales, that we needed an easy way to provide an experience that would lend itself to our audiences being able to self-serve in the system. So we worked for almost somewhere in between 3 to 6 months, let's call it, somewhere in there, on really transforming the user experience of the system. And we worked, of course, in close partnership with Derek, so that we did it not just for the sales-facing side of the system, but also for the entire company-wide side of the system, to just make sure it was a place where if someone went there independently, that it made sense to them, that they could ingest what was there and figure out a path that they needed to take to find the content that we needed. So we've put a lot of focus on that as a team, but in addition, we've also put a lot of focus, and I'll pass it over to Angel here to talk a little bit about this. We've put a lot of focus on enabling our T&D team to become more self-sufficient within the system itself.
Yes. For our T&D team, this is my mention before about our trainers becoming a lot more engaged in the system. And so we put together like admin guides for them on focusing on the things that they would do in the system. In addition to that, we built them a customized page that has some of the admin buttons without having to go to the entire admin portal of, again, the things that they're focused on, of uploading content, of creating courses, of adding a notification. So they have a nice streamlined way, and it makes it easy for them. We've also done some lunch and learns as they've become more comfortable within the system. We're showing them some more advanced capabilities so that they don't have to come to me for those needs.
You know, the biggest things that I think, it was just freeing up time that we had been spending pre-COVID traveling, having to go to offices to do training. When we were able to migrate then and have self-paced e-learnings, that's been really huge. To be able to take a lot of the really valuable content that, it doesn't need to be a 4-hour training. We can break that up and let people self-serve. And that takes, frees up time on the talent development side so that we can focus on additional needs within the business.
Oftentimes with learning programs, we hit bottlenecks and challenges. Can you tell me what some of those sort of challenges that you guys have faced and how you've overcome them? I know a lot of times the listeners of this show, they're going through probably very similar problems. So can you share some of those and some advice you might have on how to overcome?
I'll just start us off and kind of reiterate a little bit of what I was just mentioning about myself being a bottleneck. Before, with our previous systems, I was the only administrator. And so any need that a trainer had, they would come to me and ask me to create their courses, for me to enroll users, and so on. And so again, that right there, having an easy to administer system allowed our trainers to manage their own projects and courses. And I'd also say within that, we built in a WalkMe guidance within the system so that it can guide them through some of, again, those advanced processes within the system, built right into our system there. And then also another way that we overcame some of the challenges that we were having, where if we came across part of the system that wasn't working for us in some way, we built a champions team. So we had admins on this champions team that were able to work collaboratively to discover any features that didn't work and find creative ways that we could troubleshoot and overcome those.
I was going to just kind of mention that one of the things that we still have a challenge with is just overall engagement and just what it takes to really get people to invest time in the system and to prove to them that what they'll find there is worth their time. And that's a challenge that we are still working towards today. You know, I think our first step was getting the system to a place where self-service was even possible, to where that experience was intuitive enough to where people could do it on their own. And now it's a matter of keeping them coming back for more and making sure that they understand this is a valuable resource for them and that it's worth their time to invest the time into the trainings and material that's out there.
You know, I think a natural extension off of that I'm curious about is how do you tie, and especially I think on the sales side, but likely even on the HR side, how do you tie learning to performance, and how are you kind of going about that measurement model, you could say?
Yeah, we've spent a lot of time on this too, because obviously as a T&D team, you know, we spend a lot of time and effort in putting together materials and training for our audience. And clearly it breaks our hearts when it's not used or when it's being ignored by our audience. But regardless of consumption, you know, I would say first and foremost, consumption and engagement, we start there with the basics, right? Are people completing our courses in the system? We have all the reporting capabilities to do that. But the step further is where we start to have an impact on the business. And so ultimately that's what's important to us, right? Is we're doing all of this stuff to help salespeople in their jobs. If their jobs are not getting easier or if they're not getting better at it, then we're not doing our jobs well. So we really do try to look at metrics as it relates to our sales performance next to what they're completing and what their engagement is with our content and our information. And so like one of the things that we're actually trying to put together right now is we have all kinds of new metrics and new reports that have come out to support the business and how we measure bookings within this company. So we're trying to match that bookings information up with the onboarding path of our new sales reps in terms of what content they're consuming throughout that onboarding path, and if there's any correlation or does it translate in any way to how their bookings are influenced over their first few months with the organization. So that's one example where we're trying to do that. I know last year really where we had a whole bunch of change in processes of how renewals would work for our sales reps. And so we had a very large program dedicated to just processing renewals and what it takes and who the right people should be involved and all that good stuff. So we did actually take a look specifically at, well, let's see who attended the renewals training. Of those people that attend versus the people that did not attend, what we actually found was there was a direct correlation between the group that attended had more success both in renewing customers as well as they had less incomplete renewals. So less on their to-do list, if you will, from a renewal standpoint. So we did indeed see a direct correlation there. So at least we knew that we had some kind of impact. So we're always looking for those opportunities that we can to really figure out what metrics we can grab from the organization itself to understand training programs are impacting them.
It's fantastic. And Derek, on the HR side, can you walk me through some of the measurements that you have for success? And you know, do you have any sort of statistics on how you're doing in terms of those even base level, the engagements, the completions, that whole area?
Yeah. So one of the key areas that we've been focusing on over the last year really heavily is the experience of our new hires as they come on board. Since we're fully remote, that's super critical for us to make sure that, number one, they're getting the support they need when they come in the door, but that it doesn't stop there, that they also have those resources long term. And from the corporate perspective, I really want to make sure that I'm getting them what they need and they have all the resources they need from the company side. And then they shouldn't have to deal with me beyond that. They want to go do their job, right? They're excited to dive in, work with their manager, work with their teams, and we want to make sure that they're able to do that. And as we talked to some of the recent hires, we found that we really had an opportunity to kind of spread out a lot more of the training content that previously was covered kind of day one, beginning of their first week in classroom type trainings. And so we took a lot of that and kind of chopped it up into really bite-sized chunks as e-learnings that are spaced out over the first couple of weeks. And as we've done that, what we found is, of course, they're understanding it and retaining it better because they're only learning little bits at a time instead of having several hours of a presentation. It's that drinking from a fire hose that I think we've all had. And as they're doing that, their application of the training content, of the action items, and I think one thing that's been really helpful for us is the amount of questions that they have has decreased. They've not had to come to us with as many questions. They're able to use a lot of our self-service tools to be able to find the information that they're looking for. And that's been really huge because what we're hearing from managers now is that means that new hires are getting up to speed quicker, they're able to do their jobs better. And it's such a challenging environment having come through COVID and we're still going through it with having this fully remote environment. We're all learning how this works. We're all learning what it looks like to train and remote onboarding remotely, from a corporate perspective and for managers. And I think the ability to decrease that corporate side on day one and really help them learn over time has been hugely beneficial, so that the new hires can balance that. I'm at home with the kids, I'm getting started in my job, I've got to do this corporate stuff too. It's a really great balance, and they're honestly getting up to speed quicker because we're getting fewer questions over time.
And that's the big thing is giving them that access. Like you said, if it's a fire hose and it's all just in day one, there's always that forgetting curve, and they're not going to be able to even retain. Being able to spread it out in that way is hugely beneficial, especially in the long term. Now, LogMeIn isn't just a Docebo customer, but you're actually an incredibly valuable integration partner with us as well. Can you tell me a little bit about the integrations that LogMeIn has with Docebo, how you're using it, and what other features are available to our customer base?
So LogMeIn, two of our products are GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar. And of course, when we were looking for an LMS, it was imperative that there be an integration with those two products because we're already using our own products every day. So I'd say that that's probably the highest integration that we use, is the integration between Docebo and GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar. I'd say that the one valuable thing that we have with that is that it gives the completion reports. So it completes all the learners within their course when they attend through the GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar integration. And then, of course, we can have those reports. So there isn't additional work on our end to have to go back and enter attendance. That's done already. And again, being a fully remote company now, every classroom that we have is online. It is the virtual classrooms, and they're done through GoToMeeting and Webinar. So it's great to get that data back immediately from the system.
Yeah, it's really important to be able to have that visibility and be able to, not only just track it, but then give you the information that you need to enhance your program going forward as well. And if you don't have that information, you don't really know what you can action off of. So having that knowledge is critical. Have there been any features in using Docebo that you're now leveraging that when you first sort of brought it on, you hadn't really thought, we maybe won't use this, but now it's becoming a pretty critical part of your overall?
Honestly, I think one of them that just in the last, I don't know, six months or so has become really useful is the Google Analytics integration. To be able to take a look and see the engagement by page over time, are they unique users or not? That's been really helpful because it gives us just another data point to look at and see, is our training landing? Are they going and leaving and never coming back? Or when we have various training initiatives in a certain period of time, we can see if it really drove engagement to the platform, or did our comms fall short? Maybe we need to pivot and change that down the road. That's information that's hard to capture from a training perspective when we're sending information out to the whole company. And at least on Mind with HR, that's been really helpful, so that we can shift and pivot quickly to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the business.
Fantastic. And on the sales side, is there anything that's really sticking out for you?
Yeah, I would say it actually is kind of in tandem with what Derek's saying, because we utilized CSS, HTML, and the custom page design within the system. We didn't do that for the first year, right? So we kind of did an overhaul of our user experience once we started utilizing the CSS and HTML. And that allowed for us to have a custom experience for each user, which then we could see in our Google Analytics as to what pages are they going to. We've built these great pages for them, which ones are the highest visited, per se. And then also, I think the other one that we didn't tap into for, again, well over a year, it took us about a year before we started tapping into it, was the channels, maybe because we didn't really understand the rules. And now we're able to leverage it in different ways where we can use it to feature and highlight certain content. We can also use it to give a very custom view of content for specific audiences by role, such as our new hires, so that they can see just what they need when they need to see it. So we started to use that, I'd say, about a year ago.
Well, that seems to me like a perfect segue. If it's okay with inside look at Learn at LogMeIn.
We would love to show you. Let me go ahead and share my screen. What you're looking at here is actually the home page for our sales managers. So one of the things that we alluded to with our big user experience revamp is we definitely designed some very separate paths and experience depending on who you are coming into the system and what your role is within the organization. So as a sales manager, this is their destination. It actually looks quite similar to our sales rep destination as well, but managers have a couple extra bells and whistles at their disposal. But one of the things that you'll notice is some of what's available here. This is all using obviously Docebo, different pages that we have designed out. Our big kind of header at the top here, we've done a little bit of HTML and CSS to make that happen. Same with our buttons down the side here. But beyond that, most of everything else that you see in here is built with the out of the box widgets, if you will, that come with the capabilities of your different page design. So what we've just really tried to focus on is making it, you know, a destination, not just the place that they go to access that course and then when their course they're gone. We've really just tried to make it a destination for our organization. And so for a sales manager, for example, they can come in here and they can get access to one of the things that is ironically, we've just realized that is among our like top 10 pages that show up in Google Analytics as most hit is the My Required Learning page. So just making it super for our learners as to where they need to go to get the stuff that's required of them. And so we've designed out an experience that obviously makes that super easy for them. And we break it down in such a way that they can see what's not started versus what's in progress and what they've completed. So hopefully making it as much of an intuitive experience as possible for, you know, for those learners coming into the system. And then ultimately what we do within our system is, you know, we have some very basic categories of content that we provide out to our system. So from a sales perspective, we kind of break it down into these three buckets, if you will. It's how we sell. These are the conversations that reps should be having and overcoming objections and things of that nature using our sales methodology that we employ here at LogMeIn. What we sell, that's our product portfolio, and we'll take a look at that in just a second. And then the tools we use to sell. So obviously there's a lot of behind the scenes tools, clearly Salesforce being one of them, where we need to keep our sales team up to date on, you know, what it means to use those tools in the right way to get their job done. Further, we do have a whole channel section dedicated to our sales reps who are focused on working with our partners or our resellers of LogMeIn products. We have a specific level up program that we support in sales that is essentially exactly what you might think it is. It's leveling up on certain skills and product knowledge, systems knowledge, whatever it might be. And then the corporate that you see here, this is what essentially funnels people off to that whole side of the system that Derek maintains with all of the rest of the content that's available for our leadership programs and for onboarding in general. Derek, did you want to chime in there?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one of the really key pieces when we did our update last year and kind of refreshed the UI and made it a lot more intuitive was the three of us were really committed to making sure that it was consistent. Because I think we've all worked in companies where one department has one thing and it works a certain way and it's different elsewhere. And that has really been one of the key drivers, I think, to the engagement. And as we're seeing that increase over time, is that it looks the same for everybody. So no matter if they're a salesperson or if they're in care or in human resources or finance, if someone says, go click on my required learning, it's in the same place. And we have the same general format, we use the same imagery, and that general branding has been really, really helpful to keep our users engaged and familiar with the platform.
Absolutely. That was one of the great things about the partnership that we have, obviously, with Derek and HR, is that while we're potentially using the system in different ways, we've made it a priority to make sure that we come together as a team and set some standards for how we work and how the system should work for our users. And that's been key to our success. But further, I'll just take you one step further and give you a little bit of an example of what we've done for some of our catalogs of content here. So for example, under the what we sell section, this is essentially our one-stop shop for learning about all of our products and learning how to sell them. This is, of course, more sales focused, so we're not necessarily focused here on using those actual products, but since this is geared towards our sales team, it's more about having those conversations and what it means to talk intelligently about the products, and obviously tie the features to benefits and things of that nature. So we break down our product portfolio by kind of our product groupings, the way we think about them internally. We've got product release hubs that are quickly available, where if someone wants to jump in and quickly see what our feature releases are, they have the ability to look that up. But then otherwise, we essentially have a go-to catalog here. This is a little bit of HTML and CSS, nothing super fancy, but just some extra buttons that we were able to throw in with the use of Docebo widgets and whatnot on our pages that allow us to dive into one or more of our products and really deep dive and learn about them. And once you get into our products, what we have done from there is, and we really try to do this across not just all of our products, but our content in general, is just break it down so that people understand the different types of content that are in here. So we have, must-see content. We have a current program that's going on that we call our HIPT program, our high intensity product training that's going on. But then further, we break it down by, different portions of that product. So we make use of channels and catalogs and a lot of the things that Angel alluded to before to really try to make it as intuitive as possible for people to find what they're looking for if they are going in and doing any of this self-service or self-discovery.
I absolutely love what you're doing with the video widgets or the icons that you have there and how they're moving like that. That is awesome. It looks so. I noticed on the last page that it's on here too is very, very cool.
It's with your Wistia. So you have Wistia as an option for uploading videos. And so we're able to create moving thumbnails.
Really brings it to life.
It really does. It really does. And just one last thing I wanted to point out was that, I know Angel talked a little bit about how we've spent a ton of time just enabling our T&D team to make sure that they can be more proficient with the system. And so if I just switch over here for a second, now what you're seeing is basically the Learn at LogMeIn homepage or the Docebo homepage for our training and development team that supports sales. So their experience is a little bit different. And all of our users are essentially administrators within the system. So because of that, we try to kind of carefully direct their attention in areas that we want them to use and direct their attention away from areas that we don't necessarily want them to use. And so in that respect, we have created this kind of admin portal, if you will, for our team, where you can access, some of those admin features, the central repository, our catalogs, our learning plans, our notifications. They still have access to all that stuff, but they don't necessarily have to go meddle with all of the big giant admin settings and whatnot that are available in general.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys so much for giving me that inside look at this. I love how it's designed and really that whole sort of thinking of creating the consistency across the different, departments and across the organization. I think that's just so valuable. And hopefully it's sort of a lesson that the folks listening take away from this is, as you scale the program, how do you scale it across those departments and create a sort of a single source of truth, but a single experience as well. So that, I think, Derek, you kind of said this when somebody says, go and see your required courses, that everybody knows kind of exactly where they're supposed to go to click that. I really like that. And I think that's a really good piece of advice for folks listening. If you could record in one sentence the value that Docebo provides to you specifically for your job,
I think the value for me is really ease of use. It's easy to navigate, to create courses, to get courses visible to the audience that we're looking to share that with. And I'd say even on the side of these custom pages, it's easy to go make a quick change or a quick fix within the pages themselves. It's just, and the fact that we have as much control as we have in the way that it looks and feels, to me, it just makes it easier. My job was a lot harder before we had Docebo.
And actually, since Angel went first, it makes it a lot easier for me to piggyback off of that. So I would say, the value that it brings to me in my role in terms of the customizability, because in terms, you heard us talk a little bit about, the evangelism efforts that it takes for us to get our audience involved, and the customizability is what allows us to kind of cross-link the platform with our other platforms that are in use by our users in such a way that we can hopefully steer them to the system when we need to, and steer them away from it also when we want them to go elsewhere. And that customizability is key for our success from kind of a sales enablement perspective of making sure we get the information that reps need when they need it.
And I definitely want to echo what Angel said, that her life was tough with her prior vendor. I had the privilege, I guess, of administering in that for about 3 months, and I was really grateful when we were able to migrate. From my end of things, I think the value that Docebo brings is it really helps me to empower our departments and our new hires and our managers to do the best work they can, to get their learning when they want it, wherever they are. And that's really important. With our onboarding program, honestly, we have a stellar new hire onboarding program at LogMeIn. We get phenomenal feedback from new hires. Many of them even say things like, "It's the best onboarding I've ever had in my career." And Docebo is a big part of that, because we're able to provide a lot of e-learning and virtual trainings where they can self-service and be able to get the information they want. In fact, just real quick, one of our teams has started something really cool where they bring their team together and they do this virtual escape room, just a fun activity to do the training together. And that's all scheduled through Learn at LogMeIn, Docebo. They just pop in, the new hires do, they find the course, click their session and register, and they show up and have a really good collaborative onboarding training with team members from around the world. And it's being able to do those really creative things that we've been able to find and provide to the business that are just so fantastic to do. It's incredibly satisfying to be able to provide that value for the organization.
So with that, I'd love to just say thank you guys so much for joining me on this episode of the L&D Diaries. Appreciate all of your insights, and I'm excited to see what is going to happen with LogMeIn in the year ahead.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.